final TalkBack of the 18th Annual Ashland Independent Film Festival. I hope you had a chance to come to some of the others. They all will be online at the AIFF website in the next few weeks. I want to thank the Digital Media Center and the students from the Digital Media Center who are back there who have been recording this. Thank you so much. Applaud them. So that went pretty well last night, didn't it? And now we get to continue, and we have here, you may recognize Warren Etheredge. Warren,
whoever that is, thank
you. Warren has conducted over 3,500 interviews. He added 2 under his belt. Actually, last year, Chris Cooper, he was up here interviewing. Yesterday, Eleanor Coppola. Tonight, he's going to be hosting our award show. He's actually ridiculously overqualified for this, but I'm just going to tell you some of his. Of course, he's a producer, a playwright, a veteran festival programmer. As a producer, his credits include Forever by Amy Finkel, Icarus Stops for Breakfast, etc., including a film, a short animation that is in this festival this year, The Phantom 52. Just recently, in the fall of 2017, he launched a 30-week screenwriting program at the University of Washington and was appointed the VP of Curation and Acquisitions for Tom Skerritt's startup, Hayu Media. Did I pronounce that right? Hayu Media. Okay.
It's a start.
Yeah.
We'll change it.
Okay, one of the founding faculty of the film school. And he also has his own film festival, which I highly recommend, and I was lucky enough to be one of his jurors last year. He's the co-founder and curator for the Walla Walla Movie Crush. When does that take place?
July 12th through 14th.
July 12th to 14th. So now, I turn over the mic to Warren Etheredge.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Richard. Round of applause for Richard. I was all awake and then felt tired from all the things I do. So I'm sorry that you had to sit through that, but I appreciate the credits. I got to meet Gary and Annie, I guess, 9 years ago, right here at the Ashland Independent Film Festival. I've been coming for about 12 or 13 years now, and I was asked to host a conversation much like this one on stage at the Armory following Calvin Marshall. When you meet good, decent people in this business and talented people, it's fabulous to stay in touch and watch their progress. And last night, how many people saw the film last night? And impressively, this is their 4th feature film. A lot of people can make 1 feature. Making 4 is really hard. That's what we're going to talk about today. So please welcome Annie and Gary Lundgren. Gary is the writer, director, editor, and Annie does the real work producing. Since Gary probably had his turn in the spotlight last night and has been traveling around with his entourage all weekend, I'm going to let Annie do the honors of introducing the rest of your team.
All right, so up here we have our cast, some of our cast. Ray Gallegos. The 2 bad guys are at the end of the table.
We're scheming. Spin-off, right?
Dietrich Bader. And the fabulous Jesse Brego. Our other producer, we couldn't have done this without, Louis.
And just to clarify, you are a bad guy in the movie. Dietrich's just an ass. You're
Where did that
that's acting. But I'm going to go back to the beginning and just the start of this project. You've done 3 other films. Getting up the energy to do a 4th must be a lot. Why make this movie, Gary?
Boy,
after every movie, you just wonder if you can do it again, climb that mountain, it just looms out there in the distance, like how in the world are we gonna make another one? So that's a good question. I think you have to be pretty stubborn and not very smart at times. But it's a passion, it's fun, you know, like we've been working with these guys. A lot of our crew are here, which we'll introduce. We've been making movies together for, you know, some of the people under 15 years. DP Patrick Neary, for instance. So it's just, you just want to keep it going, you know, it's fun. Hopefully it can be viable. So that's what we're trying to figure out.
Viability?
Yeah.
So, like a mountain, you wanted to see if you could do it again. I just want to say that I've run marathons, and after you run one, you don't have to prove it again. You've done it, it's fine. But I'm taking it you had a real spark for the story.
Yeah. I mean, like I said last night, I feel a lot like the two characters, Bobby and Carlos, at different times of the day. I should say, like depending on what, you know, you want to create art, you're trying to make a living, you're trying to have personal fulfillment. All these things mean something to, I think, every human being. So that's what I was going through. And the pieces just kind of come together for me slowly. We talk and collaborate and try to interlock the right pieces. Like for a while, it was just going to be a pizzeria. And then Annie's like, there should be a bowling alley too. Yeah, that's a good idea. You know? So then it just starts evolving into what it is, you know, and then you follow through and hopefully you have enough passion and determination to do it, you know. So.
You know, we're getting on and we're right in midlife now, you know, in our 40s. So we feel like these characters, I think probably everybody can relate to this a little bit. You get to that point where you're like, oh man, I'm tired. Am I going to keep doing this? Or should we move on to something else? And like Gary said, we've always been really pretty stubborn. So I guess we play that out in our art, and we wanted to make a movie about when, you know, what does it look like when you're really tired, and can you keep going? Can you keep pursuing your dreams? And who do you need around you to make that happen too? So this movie's a lot about friendship, and you know, we obviously have a ton of support, and we couldn't do it without all the support that we have and the friendships.
So, Annie, I want to talk about this because Gary alluded to this idea that you threw in bowling, which clearly makes sense. As a producer, I pride myself in looking after the script and trying to hone the script with the writer and the filmmaker. Given that you're working with your husband, how much of a heavy hand can you have with that process?
I guess I could do whatever I want, right? No, but I don't. I leave most of that up to him, and then I come on. I'm like, maybe like right here, you can change something.
So when did you know the script was complete? How long ago was that?
Well, we went through a number of drafts, like they always do. We had our producing partners, Ben and Kim Piper, in here. We couldn't have made the film without them either. So it takes an army of people and allies that believe in you and that come alongside you. You know, that's what it takes, or else you can't really do it. And so we were going to shoot it a lot longer time ago. 2 years ago, we were getting ready and we couldn't pull it together. So then at that stage, it was like, man, maybe we should make a horror film. You know, but
Brady's a really good bad guy. You could do either.
So I just kept tinkering with the script. It gave me more time to revisit it, get more eyeballs on it, try to make it better, and then finally sort of the stars lined up to make it.
And to back up just a minute, you know, before I threw in the bowling alley, which as a producer, now that I'm thinking about it, is probably not a great idea. It was hard. The story, you know, apart from the pizzeria, and we have a friend who makes like the best pizzas in the whole state of Arkansas, and that part was inspired by him and the beautiful doe and everything. I think the story first began when Gary and Louie became really good friends, and Gary wanted to write a story about their friendship, and so that's kind of where that whole idea began, of these two guys trying to get through life together.
Yeah, like Louis has such a wonderful family, and got to know his extended family, and it was just really special seeing that love, and so that sort of sparked the idea of Bobby and the trailer alone, and sort of suddenly almost being adopted by the family.
As a New Yorker, I'm stuck on the phrase "the best pizza in Arkansas," but I'm going to let that go. Try not to imagine the intense competition that has been. Yeah. No, that does help. That does help.
He's from
But talking about the stars aligning, how did the stars align? What does that mean for a producer?
Louie can take that one.
Yeah, so I think it was, what was it, 3 years ago when we first talked about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been about 3 years, and I think, it's really easy to work with people like Gary and Annie. They're just so wonderful, and I think that they captures people's trust relatively easy. So when he told me about the project, I was like, I'm in, like what road do we have to map out, to get here? And so, although it's, 1,000 steps that it takes, it seems relatively easy when you're working with filmmakers, like them. And then of course we have to take the actual filmmaker step where we get a budget for this one. In the beginning, we had a pretty large budget, and we could see into the future that it could potentially take us a long time to make the film. And so we had to make a decision at a certain point that, hey, you know what, we can make the film for X amount of money, and we can make it faster. And so once we had that packaged up, we were able to get investors on board with us that believed in every single one of us, including my great friend Linda Niehaus, that's in the building right now. And so just to give you an example of the magnitude of support that we got, Linda's a friend of mine, but she's also my mom's doctor. I told her I'm making a movie, and we need a little help, and she came through for us, and Bennett Gibb, and so many other people. When it comes to the actual creative side of the film, like the biggest thing when you don't have a lot of money is protecting the director. And what I mean by that is when we have limited resources, we have to take the proper steps in order to not deviate from Gary's creative vision and not start to get carried away with cutting too many corners, if that makes sense. And so Gary's not only a passionate director, but he's a visionary director. And so in approaching this project, Annie and I, one of our primary goals was, we know we don't have a lot of money. We know what Gary wants to put on film, so, how do we, bundle up this little thing and then get there without, with satisfying Gary's creative needs, so.
I think you used the phrase "pretty big budget" in there, and if I'm not mistaken, Ray just came off the set of the last Rambo movie, which may have had more money. I'm guessing. But you don't have to give us a specific dollar amount. But what kind of budget are we talking about to make a film like this viable?
Are you asking what the budget of this film was?
Yeah.
We're not disclosing that.
Sorry.
2.5.
But it was less than
It was less than Rambo.
How much do you think we spent?
2.5.
We'll go with that.
Sorry.
Okay.
At least.
But it is, once again, it's not about dollars. It's an important consideration because
Yeah.
you have boldly announced via your blog that the first 3 films that you made did not make their money back, right? Which is one of the goals, certainly. So how do you change your approach for this film versus the first three?
Well, with the last couple of films, we definitely have taken the approach that we have to spend as little as possible to still be able to, get the creative vision out there. And it's been a huge challenge because it takes sacrifices from a lot of people. Whether it's people in the community who are providing us locations, or a lot of times we have people donating food. And our crew they work incredibly long hours, and they all need more people than we give them on their teams. Dave Marshall's here, who's also my cousin, and the production designer, and he never has enough people in his department. We decided to build the interior of the Airstream trailer that Bobby lives in a warehouse in Clement Falls. And I don't know if that was a good decision or not. Still, Dave said he learned a lot, but his team was working overnight shifts, and they were trading off, and we were sending them home to make them sleep. And I don't think Dave slept at all for 3 days, and we finally got that thing built, and it looks beautiful in the movie. We ask a lot of people. I think we ask too much, actually, and we do want to get past that, where we can have more money and with the right people and pay them adequately. So it's a huge challenge, but there's no great channels right now for films like ours out there. It's just the reality. It doesn't matter how good it is, how big the audience is, there aren't great channels for it. So we're trying to take it into our own hands this time and control our own calendar, and push as hard as we possibly can. Maybe for the first time ever, we're less scared and we're just gonna go for it. The thing I forgot to say last night was that the film opens at the Varsity May 17th. Get the word out there, make up for me not telling 500 people last night.
There's some marketing. There we go. So paying everybody adequately, and Ray, I'm going to go back to you because you're a wonderful actor, and you have been in a number of big budget films. What is the draw to a smaller film like this?
When you talk about budgets, it's great to have a large budget. It's great to have the backing of a massive network. It's great to do all that. If you're on the production side and you're into making the money back immediately, that's a great thing to have. As an actor, it's a terrible thing to walk into because it takes you forever to get to the director. The larger the budget, the more people working on the show, the more assistants, the more people you have to talk to, the more people you gotta walk around, the more people, it takes forever just to ask a question simply about the storyline. I did come off a big budget movie right before this. I left Hawaii and it was chaos. It was just absolute chaos. They had all the money in the world. I showed up here in Oregon and within 30 seconds met Annie and Gary, and he took a giant deep breath in and was like, okay, we're making a movie here, and these people are literally concerned about the people that are on set, the people that are behind the set. I'm always blown away when I get to do an indie movie, and I watch the producers and the writers pick up the garbage and bring you the bottled water and ask if you need anything at all. And those are the things that bring the heart to the movie. And for me, that's what translated last night when I was watching it. It felt like the first day when I arrived. It felt like the family that existed. When you walk into a large budget set, here's the other thing. You know exactly what's happening by the energy on the set. So if the film is in process, you walk in 2 weeks on the set, everybody is clammed up and tense. You know it starts from the top. That comes from the money, that comes from the director down, and everybody else is taking it. You walk onto a set like this and that does not exist. As an actor, you just feel completely free, no handcuffs at all, and you're ready to not only perform, but listen to them and let them shape the storyline as well. So it was really, really, really special to come into something like this. It felt very homey, very family, and it was needed for me personally at the time. So I'm very grateful that you guys let me be part of it.
So I'm going to trust that you feel much the same way, Diedrich, but
yeah, I mean, Gary just likened it to an army, like you're fighting a battle. And what's interesting about doing independent movies is like, let's say you're in an army, like you're in a massive like battalion, and then they're like, we're gonna put a scouting unit together. We're gonna go, around and go, oh, so it's just gonna be us. Yeah. We're gonna scrappy little unit. We're just gonna go out, and then you engage in the same battle as your entire battalion does, but you've got this tiny little unit. And what that ends up doing, as Ray was pointing out, is creating. We're all doing this together, and there's no clearly defined line as to units, departments.
Right.
Like, if you're on a big budget movie, I can't take this cup and go, this cup is dirty, I don't want this cup. You can't even pick it up. Once the scene is cut, somebody comes and takes it. So if you pick it up, they go, what's happening? That's my job. Yeah, that's my job. I was just picking it up. Okay, no, fine, you can pick it up. Thank you. That's precisely it. It's like you're a millimeter off. All right? Yeah. Okay, that's fine. So it's like going to camp in a weird way with the nicest counselors in the world. And it's just sort of fun. You do feel free as an actor to talk about what's happening. The other actors, you form a very cohesive unit. You're not fighting for camera time because everybody gets the same amount of time. No time. So, but as long as everybody else gets the same, I was on, I did a guest star spot on CSI Miami with David, what's his face, Caruso.
It's gonna be a good story.
Right.
Hold on. Let me take off my glasses, hold on.
We shot 90 minutes in his direction. And I'm not exaggerating, 3 in mine. I got 1 take, right? So they were like, great, that's it, come on. All right, I guess I got my lines right. Thanks, guys. So it's nice when it's all, it's just genuinely fun. And also, I was saying to Gary this last night that the thing about independent film is it hasn't been through 18, 20, it could be even 30 writers on a major motion picture. In a television show, there's a writer's room. There's one name on there, but it's been through the mill. And they know what they're doing, but they're making this one product. And they know exactly every line has been manicured in a perfect way for every demographic or the specific demographic that they're after. And it just feels very, it's like, it's canned. I'm thinking of that cheese. What's that cheese that comes in this? Velveeta cheese, right? It's like Velveeta cheese. And this is like Chev, It's like, I was thinking of an Oregonian cheese. It's like good goat cheese, And it's individual, it's distinct. And one of the things that you love as an actor is when a voice is specific. That's what I look for, because then it's fun. Then I'm fulfilling the vision of an artist and not of a larger studio. It's lucrative to fulfill the vision of a studio, but it's nowhere near as much fun.
So knowing that it's coming from one voice, one writer, one vision,
Yeah.
does that change your approach to the comedy? Because once again, round of applause for Diedrich and Kevin Corrigan and everyone else. So damn fun in that movie. Do you feel a greater dedication to the script exactly the way it's written, or do you play around a little bit?
Gary will probably say that I played around. Yeah, I probably did. But I do that on every set, and some people yell at you and some people don't. My film career started, oh no, that's not true, that was the second one. Well, with the Beverly Hillbillies, and I added a lot of stuff in the Beverly Hillbillies, and I literally had things thrown at me because of it, on camera.
Okay.
By the way, everything I added is in the picture.
Yes.
But,
Jethro and Jethrine.
yeah,
He really was, he was.
no, I just bring it up because the way I work, and it drives some people crazy, is I add things, and it's like, I don't actually mean to. They just sort of come out like a Tourette's sort of thing. Because I get I hope anyway, I get the voice of the creator and get really into it, and all of a sudden this whole other thing comes up. I worked for 9 years with the greatest improviser in the world, Ryan Stiles, and he could make things up out of whole cloth. Like, he just stepped up on stage and he had this whole thing. And it was very hard for me until I realized all I have to do is step on stage with Ryan Stiles. Ryan's gonna go first, and then I just go with it. And it's like that. So you get the vision, you get a voice, you get a very specific vocabulary that they use for the actors, and then you just go right into there. Sometimes they use it, sometimes they don't. Gary was really open to it, and you know, I love it. It was like playing. It's like playing. It's like being a little boy. Whenever you can find a little boy and have fun, then I think the audience has fun too. So that's it.
Dietrich and Ryan, and Drew carried us along for the ride.
Yeah.
So
That's true.
So watching watching the film last night, did you go like, oh, that is one of mine, and it's a gem?
Oh, the thing that Jesse and I discovered with him doing the voice, was that in the script? I can't remember.
Oh, the mocking.
The mocking thing. I did do the
No,
mocking thing
that-
was in there. That's right.
That's good.
Yeah. It felt really organic and felt really good. Yeah. I don't know if I got anything in, but I really don't know. It kind of fuses.
Can I just say that I worked in restaurants for about 15 years of my life, and the moment when Dietrich shakes the bow tie at Jesse, I wanted to slap him in the face. I've had managers like that, like, where's your tie?
Well, because they love the power position.
Yes.
You know, they love it, just like your character loves like bragging. You know, it's part of his thing is doing that. Yeah, I mean, you know, I worked at a restaurant too, only for 2 weeks. I got that first check, and I was like, all that for this, and mostly because of the power structure, and the power structure is so awful. It's just the same thing like with Office Space. Office Space is about like that power structure and how people naturally rebel against it, and how also people. Like in the, what was that, the Stanford experiment, where they love the domination. They just love it. They can't help themselves. It comes out of them. And that was one of the things I liked about the boss, was that he just went right up in there. Even though he was desperately sad, probably an alcoholic, he's losing his business, at least he's got this. You know, he can be a total jerk to somebody below him. And he's got that. And he really like gets into it, you know? That for me, because the manager of the pizza parlor where I worked, he loved it. He loved it. He loved it. And so that's what I was remembering at Chandler.
Best pizza in Pasadena, I'm sure.
I have to say, one of the things that impressed me the most as an actor and having been in it over 30 years is, and having worked with, you know, the stars, the guys that get, you know, Don Johnson would get all this stuff done and then he'd leave when they turned around on you. Dealing with stuff like that, but then that's what I love about independent film, is that you're working with you're working with filmmakers that want the actors to embrace the work. But what was most impressive to me is because I think that's what actors do. We, and I think that's what he understood, is we take writing, we take characters, and then we fill them, we elaborate on them. And sometimes there were some things that I added for Carlos, and I think that all of us as actors, as the good actors, kind of do that. So when a director allows you to do that, it really creates these beautiful characters that seem very natural to the world. But what was most impressive to me was that Dietrich, Kevin, Ray, they came in for a few days. James was in it from the beginning, right? I came in and I was able to catch on to that. Lisa, same thing. But we didn't know who Kyle was. We didn't know who Al was gonna be up until we were pushing back until we got the actors that were going to be there for us, you know, and that's that part that's going on. While you're doing the work, they still haven't cast out. And there's all these names bouncing around. So there's this kind of unknown quality, like, who's gonna come in, and are they gonna, time's running out, are they gonna be able to come in and fill Kyle, this character that needs to be fully realized? He can't just be an a-hole, he has to be a real person. And then this incredible man comes in with a few days and just creates this seamless character. So when you realize who you're working with, and it just kept going, and then we scored Kevin. And so I think at that point, as an artist, not just as an actor, as an artist, you're like, I kept going to him, going, we got a movie. And of course he's in the middle of the battle going, what? And I'm going, no, look at the dudes you have around you. Look at the people you have around you. These are the real deal. And you're gonna get something where these performances, you know, it was an actor's piece. And it was just beautiful to see these actors come in and be able to show their artistry for a vision, you know. And I think that can only happen in the independent film realm.
Well, I love hearing that, and Gary, I would hope you could talk about the casting of the ageless Jesse over here, because he really is the heart of the project. I mean, he's the decency to balance bad guy and real a-hole down there. That was a tribute to your acting.
Kyle's the a-hole. Hedrick is a beautiful figure. It was a pleasure to work with all these guys.
Well, you know, I always say there's nothing more worthless than a screenplay after you shoot the movie, you know. It's the most worthless thing in the world. So it has to come to life, you know, it has to be a movie, it has to be fleshed out, three-dimensional, and then the script is meaningless. So script is less important to me, but with that said, you have to script it well, or the actors won't take the parts, you know, they'll say no. So they have to latch onto that there is this is a three-dimensional character talking that I'm reading, and they can start imagining it. And then of course when they come on set, you'd be stupid not to let them go, you know, let them do what they're good at, you know. So that part for me is fun. It's like, wow, my script doesn't really sound badly written now.
Quite the rave. Just to wrap up the casting thing, we have to talk about Kevin Corrigan a little bit, because I was going to say what's now going to be like. It's going to be like Kevin Corrigan. Certifiably insane, assuming the mantle of Christopher Walken, or exactly what you were thinking.
I think he exceeded it. You know, the character was always out there on the page, so, and he always had a sort of a New York thing going on in my head, so it's either Boston or East Coast, like I was just picturing that kind of a character actor playing the part. But yeah, Kevin felt like sort of a dream, you know, and James was awesome to text him and say, these guys aren't crazy, you know, it is a good project. And so that really did it, you know, it allowed him to come out. He works a very specific way, and Louis can talk about that a little bit because he has a good story. But he's one of these guys that just sort of is working out the character right on camera. Like he'll do one line and then he'll reverse himself. He'll do it again. He'll do it again, and we just keep filming him. And he's just like working out the nuances, and then he'll do it one way, and then he knows it felt right to him. We'll move on to the next line. So it was beautiful to watch.
Jesse, you're nodding along with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you guys can testify to this. Different actors work different ways, and you know, we all come from different training techniques, but we also come from different experiences. You know, and those of us that have been in the theater, you know, we have a certain way of working. But there's a certain way of working on camera that I think has been developed in modern acting, and you gotta kind of respect that process when you know that actors come from that world. And you know, I've worked with all kinds, and I love that. I love when I see an artist really working their thing and working their technique. And so for you is how to stay in the game if your technique is a little different, how to stay in the game so that you play in the same world. And I thought, again, that can only happen in that indie world where there's not this pressure to be correct or to do it a certain way, or to cater to one actor and not to the other, but to the whole process. And again, that's a tribute to the director, to be able to work with those different styles of getting to the same thing, which ultimately, as actors, we want to serve the narrative. So while at a certain point, if you were looking from the outside and you saw how the other actors got there, you're looking at Kevin and what he's doing, you're kind of going, is this gonna work? But knowing what we know, it's like, not only is it gonna work, believe me, when he gets into the editing room, he's gonna see these incredible things that you can't see while you're watching it. And I think, again, you have to be a very versatile, open director to allow your piece to fly, especially when you have actors of that caliber, And again, they come in and they do it with a few days. Kevin came in at the end of the shoot and buttoned up the whole third act with this character that, has a through line all the way through. And, that's incredible to me. I just go, wow, how did these guys do this? But I knew that was gonna make the movie rise to the next level, an actor's piece, and yeah.
Well, you were gonna add something to that?
Yeah, just going back to the story that Gary mentioned about Kevin Corrigan. Yeah, he's a phenomenal actor, and he's a very unique person, a very unique presence. At certain points, I couldn't tell if he was actually Al or not, which I think a lot of us did. But I remember sitting down with him at dinner one day, and he was just still kind of channeling that Al energy. But I asked him an actor's question, and then he shut it off. And then he started telling me about how he develops characters, his approach to, how, his process. And it was just really funny, and this is the part that makes Gary laugh and all of us, but he's telling me this deep, meaningful, information about, him as an actor, and then he steps back and he says, but I've never been one of those actors. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he goes, the ones that memorize their lines. I kind of always just have the heads in my pocket, and I just need to know what I'm trying to say and why I'm trying to say it. And I was like, wow. But he's amazing. Yeah, he's an incredible guy.
Just watched Hearts of Darkness again yesterday, and they would have fit right in that frame. Line memorization not necessary. So let's get back to this idea. You've completed the movie. You screened it last night. It was a world premiere. Once again, a round of applause for the world. Keeping in mind that the film will open at the Varsity on May 17th, tell your friends, family, email, put it on Facebook, do whatever you have to do. You can follow the film, go to the website, do whatever. May 17th.
I didn't have to do that.
That's okay. I will shield like a madman. But now that is the hard part of getting it out to the rest of the world. And you have tried multiple distribution strategies for the first 3 films, and you're doing something incredibly different, daring, this time. Do you want to talk about that?
Okay.
But that's why we're here. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so I don't know if anybody knows what we're doing. 30 cities.
They should.
Yeah, 50 cities, 30 cities, something like that. So on our last films, what we found is, independent films have very little resources, and you look at the studios and what they're doing, and I think somehow in the back of your mind on your first film, you think that you could copy that, but you don't realize how many millions of dollars and how many people they have on those. So as we would hit festivals with our last films, it was this roller coaster process. We'd go up and we'd have all this engagement and press, and it'd be really exciting, and then 2 weeks later everybody would forget about it. And then maybe 2 months later we hit the next festival and it'd go up again and then down. And none of that carried through. So it's you put all this energy in and you have 4 people doing the work, and then it all goes away. And so it just never gets any kind of momentum unless you get really lucky and you're in the top less than 1%, and a big studio picks it up or plucks you out of the the indie channel and puts a ton of money into it, and then puts it in that studio system. So it's not even like it puts you in an indie system, it just plucks you out and puts you in the studio system. And so on this one, we were looking at that, and we knew how hard it is. All of our films have distribution, you can watch them all, but we weren't getting, we were finding our audiences over time, that it was very slow, and we wanted to take matters into our own hands a little more. We just decided we're not gonna wait around. What a lot of indie films is they'll screen in festivals for a year, then they'll wait and see if they get distribution, and then another year later they'll get something, and then the movie will be out, and then by then, it's just kind of like this stop and start process. And we just decided, the festival here is incredible. The amount of press and publicity that you can get here is really important, and has been great. So we just decided early on, we're gonna take that, we're gonna leverage that, and then we're gonna continue our build all the way until we're done. So from now until the fall, we're pushing the movie hard, there's no stopping. And so 2 weeks from now, we have our next screening in my hometown, which is just an hour from here. We are doing a screening, and the after party is at the bowling alley where I grew up, eating pizza and playing arcade games, and they're reopening it. It's gonna be the first look at the new lanes. It's been shut down for like 15 years, completely torn apart. And then right after that, we're opening in Klamath Falls, and then Lee Coming Attractions. They have us in 10 of their theaters starting in June. And then we're gonna do a 2-week Oregon tour, 8-week national tour. We have dates booked all across the country. We're still filling it up though, so if there's a city you think we have to go to and there's an amazing art house theater, tell us and we'll put it there. And we're huge news that we just got this last week, thanks to Tim Williams. We're doing the Oregon Made Portland circuit. So May 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, we're playing Hollywood Theater and 3 other theaters there. So we'll be going up for Q&A. We have 20 to 25 dates confirmed between now and the end of June. And then we're still working on the July to August dates. We have about 5 or 6 of those confirmed.
Can you talk about the 100 cubed concept?
Did you read my blog?
Of course. Research to please.
Oh, I like numbers. So I've been doing these challenges recently, and it's I kind of gets my brain focused on what needs to be done and gives me a little bit of structure. So in August, for my birthday, I gave myself this birthday gift, which was to sleep outside 1 night a week for 30 weeks. And I don't know why, but somehow that sounded like a good idea to me until I realized that it was going over winter. And it was like dark at 5. So I started throwing my sleeping bag out like at 9 o'clock, getting in it outside and waking up. Anyways, that has nothing to do about movies.
No, when I sleep outside, I'm usually kicked outside. That's how that goes.
So I did that. It finished in March. It was amazing. It was life-changing. But it did get me thinking about challenges and structuring things and how are we going to make this happen and what kind of really risky things can we do for ourselves. And so then I decided that I would write a blog for 30 weeks. And I would start it on February 1st, and it would go through September 1st, and it would be about our release. And the first blog post would say, we have no idea what we're doing or how we're releasing this movie, but here's our goals. We want to screen in 100 theaters, 100 venues. We want to get 100 people to sit in those seats, which is extremely hard to do. It's how do you get 100 people in the theater, right? I still haven't quite figured that out. And we want to return 100,000 to our investors by the end of the year. So, and that's not profitability, that's just writing checks to them, which would be really amazing. That's 100 cubed. I don't know how we're going to do that still. We're a quarter of the way there to booking 100 venues. We're not necessarily going to show up at all those venues, but we're hoping that as we move through the country, maybe other theaters will start booking it, and we'll see where it goes.
So.
One thing to add to that, and that's why these types of festivals are so important. Peter Bratt that was moderating the panel the other day, he had that wonderful film Dolores. Well, before that, he had made 2 films that did really well at Sundance. One was in the 90s that didn't go anywhere because it was before DVD, it was before all of that. But the second one, La Misión, had no Hollywood support. It did not get any distribution deal, and they decided that for their 2.5, what we spent on this film, that they could not take any of the deals that were offered. So, respecting their investors, they went on their own, 70-plus theater, independent stretch. But thanks to Facebook, no TV ads, just the trailer on Facebook, viralizing it, sharing it, 10 people told 10 people told 10 people. And by the end of their theatrical run, they had made half the money back for their investors, so they were solid. And they kept their own ancillary rights. So they could go on and stream and digitize it and DVD it. It was gonna come back to them because it was only a theatrical distribution deal that they did. So it is possible, but we need the help of the audience that loves it. So if you tell 10 people, so that's the 100 cubed, is if each of us takes on that 10 people, we're gonna tell 10 people and get them to go to the theater, not just tell them, but go, no, it's playing at the Varsity next week. And it's always important to me, one of the things that I do is back in the day, the Latino actors in Hollywood started this thing called First Day, opening night. It's so important because indies get judged the minute that the theater opens. They're up against the Iron Man 3s, the Marvels, all of that. So if the theater does not see butts in the seat, they will shut it down. When they see butts in the seat, they go, okay, you get another day. And that's how it is. And every single little theater is like that. So when you help us get 100 people in that one little theater in your area, you are saving this film and allowing it to continue. So it is so important for an audience like yourselves, that beautiful audience last night. Imagine if every person told 10 people and got those 10 people into the theater. That's a lot of people just from last night.
That's 5,000 plus right
So
there.
if we continue that across the country and, we're able to use that viral idea of the digital age, it is possible to make a film like this survive and therefore give them the chance to tell their next story.
Sounds like you're running for office. I like it. There are not nearly enough Democratic candidates for presidency. Whether you're a movie maker or a movie lover, I really highly recommend Annie's blog because it's a really fascinating and rare inside look at an indie film and its efforts to get to audiences, I should say. There's a line in, I guess, your first blog that I loved, is that you said, in the past, you felt like you sometimes let humiliation govern small mistakes. And I wondered if you could explain that.
Yeah, it's an interesting process just getting older and smarter and learning. And I think what's happened for me recently is in the past I've tried to do everything myself, even the things I'm not good at, and sometimes that's because I'm afraid of admitting the things I'm not good at. But I really started looking at, where are my strengths, and realizing I am really good at a few things, and then letting the rest of it go, and letting other people take on that stuff. So in the past, I've had this idea to do the tour before, but it was all wrapped up in my own little world. I didn't even want to tell anybody about it, and then as soon as I made the first mistake, I just gave up. And the humiliation part, I think it's really scary to put a film out there into the world and then think that people won't want to see it, or you're bugging them, or you're never going to find the audience, and then you start getting all the negative feedback. I guess recently I've just realized, in talking to other producers out there, I wasn't prepared for this question. Well, in December I called a producer friend who had a film at Sundance, for instance, and I was telling him what we were thinking of doing, and I was asking him all these questions, and he just said over the phone, he kept saying, oh yeah, I was just talking to our other producers about that same question. And then another question, it's like, oh yeah, we were just talking about that the other day. no answers at all for me, just that they were talking about that too. And I realized, oh, I guess no one else knows what they're doing either. And so now I'm not so scared of feeling dumb, you know?
There's a certain William Goldman ring to that. You have other members of the production team here, obviously. We've met some. How many people were involved in this film in some way? Raise your hand.
You know, I want to say one more thing. We were talking about all the A-list actors, but we have Jai over here who played Blade, and we interfaced with a lot of Oregon talent, and a lot of the actors, and you know, some of the crew were jumping on as extras on camera, and it was so beautiful to see first-time actors, to see actors who came in and just filled these smaller characters and roles and just really helped Gary and Ann fulfill their vision. And I was so happy behind the camera and in front of the camera with the talent that was put together for this project. You know, thank you, Joma.
Do you want to point out others in the audience? Gary or
Our
Annie?
group.
Who would like to?
I just wanted to add to what Jesse was just saying, just to give you like examples, like Ben Collins, who was a great assistant on the project, like delivers the wine in the movie, or our makeup and hair artist Miriam was a key extra for us, and so there was a lot of people coming through for us, but that's what it takes.
Well, we have our composer, John Askew, in the audience. Since college, and so he's worked with us since Wild Flutter, actually. Yeah, it's been really fun, just together, I think, growing as artists and being able to put out great work together. And then Pat Murray, over 15 years now. He's also our DP on Wild Flutter. You know, so those guys make wonders happen with, again, very little resources.
Patrick's also a fine animator and filmmaker himself.
Yes. But a lot of the crew that jumped on and that, you know, they have on their team are filmmakers themselves. You know, we had Kirk over here, we had 2 shorts in the local Oregon screening the other night. And so when you Patrick Blevins, who was our second guy, our B camera operator, he's, you know, a filmmaker himself, you know, so all of these, from the young people to the older crew, they're all filmmakers in their own right, you know, so it's beautiful that they're able to just, you know, drop their pet projects and come over to work on something that they believe in, you know, but that's a testament to who these people are as filmmakers.
Also, Claudia Everett, she's worked with us on
Woo!
And she's great. She's right here, and she always does such an amazing job dressing these people.
American Graffiti.
This feels like the thank yous at an Oscar speech. We're going to leave somebody out, it's going to be problematic, but trust that we're all included.
You know who you are.
But let's open it up to some questions from the audience. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I really enjoyed the film.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Richard Blue, and I came all the way from Florida to attend this festival. It's worth every minute of it. You guys were fantastic. A couple of comments. I've been trying to write a screenplay based on some materials my brother left me a long time ago. And I've been taking screenwriting classes. And the interesting thing is, they always talk about Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, and each scene has to have kind of a replica of that. And you have to have an antagonist and a protagonist. You guys had, I think, at least 3, if not 4 jerks. You know, yours, you know, the guy who picks the machines. And in some way, even the hero was an incomplete guy. and very repressed and all of this.
Hold on a second, I'm gonna
And the
change.
part that Jesse played, the pizza guy, was the only one who really had it together along with you. And I thought it was really fantastic that you could have 4 jerks or 4 or 5 jerks and make it all work. You know, that was really tremendous. And the other comment I wanted to make was it's really, everything you said here sounded like a love fest. And my brother made films and I watched Coppola's, Heart of Darkness last night. And the contrast between what they're describing about you here and Francis Coppola couldn't be more extraordinary. and directors generally have to be pretty dictatorial to get their vision realized. And it seems like you found a rather different way to do that. And I wonder, we've all talked about it, but I wonder if you could.
Yeah, I could definitely talk about that. I played college sports and I ran into a lot of authoritarian coaches who, it felt like the military, You remember Bobby Knight throwing chairs and putting his hands on players and getting fired and things like that, where I think it's an old school way of leading that comes of just sort of grinding people down to get what you want. And I think that mentality has been in Hollywood. And I think that whole guard is changing, I hope, everywhere, really. So, the other thing is, the last thing you want to do is limit people that are talented. Like, I'm not a cinematographer, I'm not an actor. So you want to let them do their thing to the best of their ability. And so why would once you start limiting that, you have to keep your eye on the ball and keep the movie you're trying to make go, but by collaborating with everyone, I generally think you make a better movie in the end. So why wouldn't you do that?
And I just actually wanted to add to that is, I think everybody would agree that Gary is an extremely sweet guy. I mean, he can keep it gangster sometimes. But just his ability to stay true to his vision, when somebody comes in and contradicts, or when him and I are throwing stuff back and forth, it's just the way that he handles those situations that makes all the difference. I don't think I've ever worked or met with somebody that handles contradiction as beautifully as Gary does.
Inevitably they come up.
Yeah, most definitely, yeah. But it's just his approach, never condescending. But I really respect that he stays true to what he's trying to do and delivers that without having to, instill like any negativity on set or with any of the crew members. So, yeah.
Not enough.
True to his vision plus a bowling alley.
Oh, I wanted to add one more thing though. This is like just random, sorry, but I'm in front of the mic, so I'm gonna do my thing. Gary and Annie's ability to work together is incredible. They're extremely professional. I've known them for a long time, and I've worked with them on many things. But like the director and producer roles, and the way that them being a married couple, the way that they work those two things is incredible. And I mean, like we had been spending like months together working on this film for preparation. And I remember the first time that, I forget where we were at, but I remember the very first time when we were meeting and talking about logistics, and Annie says like, "Oh, can I get you this, honey?" And I was just like kind of taken back, and I was like, "Honey?" But I was literally like, "What?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, you guys are a couple, yeah." But just like, I've always been like super inspired with the way that you guys can do that. It's beautiful, yeah.
I have a feeling we could plant some cameras in that Airstream for the 8-week trip and see how that plays out. There may be,
We were discussing it.
money may fall to the wayside, that's all I'm saying.
The blog's gonna take a dark turn.
As Gary takes the 30-week sleep out challenge.
I was just going to say, to your point as well, that I think the reason why it sounds like a love fest when we're talking about this, that's a larger reflection of the business that we're in. And I think that we encounter more, much harsher personalities on set than we encounter pliable people that are looking for us to come into their fold. And so because of that, it sounds like a left. It's like it's almost like we're desperately having water for the first time in a while. And it's like, yes, we're getting paychecks, yes, we're working, but it is a machine, it is a business, and when you get to go back to where it all started, which was your mom yelling at you as a kid, knock it off, because you were just playing nonstop and your mind was spinning. When you get to go back to that world and somebody says, go ahead, that's why it's a love fest. That's why it's a love fest.
Somebody has a microphone, yes.
I'll give it to you.
Okay.
Two questions. One is, as you're, is this on?
Yeah, you gotta speak right into it.
So are you?
Oh, no, it's not.
Are you employing outside marketing consultants for your viral campaign? Question one. And two, as you succeed in moving down the road with the campaign, the distribution campaign you described, does the window shut in terms of finding traditional distribution as you succeed in doing the viral?
Yeah, that's a great question. We've been asking ourselves those things. Our strategy right now is we have a team. I'm not doing it all myself, thank goodness, this time. So, our distribution team, Molly, Kim, Louie, me are doing it, and then we have Ben and a lot of other people helping too. We are doing everything ourselves right now as a team, but with a mind to scale. We're always trying to leave things open so that we can scale if it makes sense. So if we really are starting to get some traction, then we'll put more money in to some of those viral campaigns that you're talking about. We'll hire consultants. We don't need that yet because we're still really small. Kim's been taking over our bookings. She's booking the theaters right now. Louie's doing a lot of social media. Molly's helping with everything else. And then I think that might answer your first question. We're just every day asking ourselves, is now the time to hire somebody else to come in? Do we need more help? We don't have money. We don't have very much resources. So it's all kind of touch and go. As we make money, as revenues come in, we're spending that money. So we're trying to keep our cash flow working right now. And we'll start having some revenues in a few weeks from ticket sales. The second question is a great one. We know that we've gotten distribution in the past, online distribution, so we know that that's an option for us. So we are basically taking these few months now to do our own theatrical rollout and do this 50-city tour and see how much money we can make on our own like that. While we're doing that, we're trying not to shoot ourselves in the foot and shrink that window so much that we can't have a distributor come in and do their own theatrical. Like, that would be the dream, right? We get some buzz. It's looking good. We're doing some of their marketing for them, which you kind of have to do for these studios sometimes so they can catch the vision. And they pop in and they go, oh, wow, that looks good. Let's put you in, 300 theaters and we'll pay for it. That would be amazing if that happened in a month or something. But the likelihood is not high that would happen. So probably we will roll out while keeping that as an option and never shutting it out and always looking for it. We'll continue our rollout through August, and then we'll release on VOD with one of our distributors that we've used in the past. And so that the film will then be out there by the end of the year. So we're not ever closing that window. We know how to do that part. We're trying to leave other options open so it can scale bigger, as big as it possibly could. Yep. Feedback? Because come and tell me how we should do it differently.
You probably had this question a lot, but it really interests me with independent films. How does somebody actually get started? I mean, you've got an idea, you want to make a film, maybe you have a little knowledge about it. I mean, how does it even begin?
Oh man, first, be really stubborn. And you're gonna do it no matter what. That's where it all starts from. We tried our first film, Calvin Marshall. We made a film in college. It was called Lithium, and I don't even think we know how to watch it anymore. It's on beta tape somewhere in our storage unit. So yeah, we did that first, so it exists somewhere. And then Gary just kept writing scripts. Probably wrote 10 scripts before we finally made Calvin Marshall. And then we had that script, and then we knew we couldn't get it made, so we made Wow and Flutter, a short film. And that ended up attracting some of the actors on Calvin. And you guys recognize Diedrich from Calvin, right? He's like the nicest guy ever in that movie.
That's called range.
Like, you're too nice in that movie, so you have to be mean in this one. Yeah, I don't know, we just keep at it, no matter what. We've taken a ton of risks. Yeah, and, you know, made our family crazy and made our crew work really hard. And we don't talk about anything else at home except how we're gonna make our next movie and drive our daughter nuts. That's how.
You need allies. So however you get the allies, you're not writing a novel. You need 50 people on your side, 100 people on your side. So it's one ally at a time.
And how do you get those? I mean,
Well,
like,
it's
slowly.
Yeah, you meet people, you network. You have to be brave in contacting people. You have to have a script that excites someone.
It all starts with the script. Yeah. Frankly, it all starts with the script. If you don't have an idea that somebody wants to tell the story, then you're not going to get anybody involved. If you don't have an interesting story, like I don't know what your brother's story is, but I'm already intrigued that you want to write your brother's story. Yeah, so it's just, it all comes from the story, because we're ultimately, all we are is storytellers. And if you've got a good story, if you've got a good hook, you get an ally. If it falls apart, it falls apart, but sometimes you're like, maybe it doesn't work out, maybe it will. I would love it if it does. So it just starts building its own momentum. Speaking about Calvin Marshall, I auditioned Calvin Marshall, I think a year before we ended up doing it.
Yeah.
Because it went away, and then when it came back, they were like, "Are you still interested?" Yeah, it's a great story. I want to be part of that story. So I think it all starts with that, really, and then of course the persistence, and as Amy's pointed out.
Wait, they made you audition?
Yeah.
Don't make him audition, he said.
I actually believe in the audition process. I actually really like the audition process because part of it is that, this is going to sound kind of cocky, I'm auditioning you.
Yes!
I've had tons of auditions where, and this will drive my agent crazy, where I'll have an argument with the director in the room and then go, it's going to work for me because you have no money. If you had a ton of money, I'm an expensive prostitute.
Yes.
I'm an expensive prostitute. If you've got the money, yeah, you can do whatever you want. But if you don't have the money, you got to be sweet to me.
Yes.
Well, Diedrich, I have $1 in a dream.
That's enough.
So I just wanted to follow up with some of the comments. I just wanted to follow up with some of the comments about the crew and folks who work on it, and follow up on a little bit of that question that was here a second ago about how you get the people involved. The two people directing and producing this, and Louis, as you and I know, have both sat learning from Annie and Gary on many occasions. So many of us have come up through the ranks, and so not that everybody who has a film here who lives in the Valley has, worked directly with Annie or Gary, but so many of us have had an opportunity to ask them questions. They are generous. I think the word that comes to my mind is generous. They have taken tons of time over the past, 10 or more years to listen, to assist people in crafting their script, in crafting their stories, countless hours. And, not that that was ever the reason they did it, but I think that has banked them a whole lot of amazing goodwill for the majority of us who will go to the mat for them at any time because we totally believe in them. And I believe, marketer in me right now, that means that each of us who will go to the mountain for them will get 10 people to those theaters in and around. As soon as we know all the cities, we can start contacting our friends. Because I know not only do we have friends here, but we have friends around the country who would love to see this, and we all desperately need to laugh these days.
Yes, Florida.
So that could be May 17th here at the Varsity, or May 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th in Portland. So that's just one start right there, yes.
First of all, great film and performances. And thank you, yes, because do we ever need to laugh? And so I'm very appreciative to all of you for such a great job. The whole thing with, I came away wondering about the pizza. I want a pizza after. And of course, where I went, I didn't get great pizza, and I was wondering where Carlos was. So then to hear that there's a best pizza in Arkansas, and then you jump in with, well, what about New York? I mean, wouldn't it be fun to do an all-state nationwide pizza competition? Do a film on that. But at any rate, I'm curious, Anne, where you're from. Like you're saying your town is an hour away and the bowling alley is opening, and I don't know where that is.
Oh, gosh, I grew up not the town of Paradise, I grew up in Scott Valley. It's an hour south of here. So my parents are right there.
Yeah.
I still live there, and yeah, it was an idyllic growing up area, childhood, Marble Mountains, right at our doorstep.
Woo!
Spent a lot of time in the mountains. So yeah, that's where I grew up. And Gary and I, we lived in LA, we met down there, and would come up to visit my parents and came to Ashland all the time. And I was here as a kid too, obviously. And then when we were really ready to get out of LA, we just decided to move here. That was 9 years ago.
I dare you to try that 30-day sleep outside thing in LA.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about that. Let's get on.
Where's the tent?
I actually was, like, I travel to do commercials. That's, Gary and I both do commercials for work, other work, the pain work. And so I was down there working on a commercial during my sleep out, and I said goodnight to the crew at the hotel and put my backpack on. Didn't tell anybody. I had this gorgeous hotel room in Marina Del Rey. I was like, dang, this is the last day I have to get my sleep out on this day. Put my backpack on, walked like 15 minutes to my friend's house in Venice Beach and slept in her backyard. And then the next morning when I saw the gorgeous beach with all these sleeping bags, I'm like, oh dang, I should have just camped out right here with everybody else.
I think Ray and I had different neighborhoods in mind, but
There's some parts of Venice that are still sketchy.
yes, time for yes.
I was just curious, respecting your privacy and everything, but what is the advantage of not disclosing the budget? How is that helping your cause for the marketing?
Protocol that you don't disclose your budget, because if you say what you made it for, then maybe that's what the offer will be that you get, and you really want an offer, you really want to be profitable, and yeah, and you know, honestly, I think you guys, we spent a certain number of dollars, right? But all you nod your heads over there, sweat equity is way more than the actual dollars we said. We should get paid for that.
Added value.
Yeah.
I had a friend
all of
over-
us should, you know, we should all get paid for that.
I had a friend who was an executive at Sony, and for many years I would talk to him about that, about the valuation. And, you know, it's a money thing, but one of the things he hit me to was, he goes, no, Jess, it's perceived value. That's what they, and so I think, and that's one of the things I kept telling them, because I've worked on many independent films, all the way to the actual festival where then they start to have the deals on the table. And being intimately involved with the filmmakers and coming out and hearing some of these stories, I realized that you have to put a valuation on your own project. And so as I saw this cast start to grow, I kept telling them, would you make this movie for? And they'd say a number and I'd say, no, 2.5. At 0.5. 2.5, 3.5, and whether it's a reality or not, That's a very real valuation. Anybody who's done a good independent film has to realize that you've spent over $1 million worth of people's time and resources. You cannot make a full-length film for less than $1 million. Now that's whether you make it for a lot less than that in terms of money and budget, the time and the resources and just the energy that it takes is $1 million. And again, I'm just saying that's a low ball figure in Hollywood, but it's a perceived value that as a filmmaker, you have to believe in it that much. And so constantly you have to fight, especially when you finish a project like this, you have to put a perceived value on it that you can go to the negotiation table with. And you have to really believe that in order to be able to get past that part of it. It's very difficult because the real dollars and cents are right there, what you really owe. But in order to get that, because when you get to that point of negotiation, it's like anything else. They're gonna try and get it bottom dollar. So you have to push your perceived value up. Now that doesn't mean to say that every film has that valuation, but you have to, if you ever watch Shark Tank, you have to know what you have, and you have to value it that way. And a lot of times I just say, hey, add that 0.5. Whatever you think it is, it's 3.5. I was always like, what the hell is the 0.5? Why don't you just say 500,000, But the reality of it is, and so that's the strategy that I think every independent filmmaker, especially when they have something like this, you gotta believe in what you have, and you have to constantly push that perceived value up in order to be able to get back what you really deserve.
Specific numbers don't matter to Jesse. He really is ready for politics. There we go.
So for this $10.5 million film, I grew up in the Valley, moved here when I was 10, graduated Ashland High, and got the hell out of here. Because that's what you do. To get culture, get alive. And the thing that occurs to me is that you've named this film Phoenix, Oregon. That's a bit provincial. And do you think that you can get the draw that you're looking for with that type of a name?
Yes.
I'm going to go ahead and answer that question for you, even though I'm not the filmmaker. The Phoenix is a metaphor for his rebirth. I didn't know Phoenix, Oregon was a town, and it didn't matter to me. I thought it was just the name of the rebirth. I think for anyone outside of Oregon, they're not going to know that it actually exists. So it's not a provincial concept, because you can't cast any preconceived notion of it, because I didn't even know it existed. I didn't actually know it existed until this weekend. Like, I didn't Google it. You're going to shoot in Klamath Falls. So I was like, oh, all right. I didn't go, why aren't they shooting in Phoenix? It's called Phoenix, Oregon. How dare they? Yeah, so I'm sorry. Does that answer your
I have a question about the music. It was a great driving force.
Oh,
Can you tell me a little about your process, Mr. Askew?
Can we? Come over here. Wow, she's.
Mr. Askew up there.
You're going all Johnny.
Thanks, I wasn't. Sorry, I just had to.
Composers never get out.
Very true. The process, but I'm not used to being in front of people, so pardon my shyness, but Gary and I have known each other for a long time, and Gary is an incredible music fan. He is one of the reasons we get along so well. Is he actually has a collection and he listens to music more regularly than anybody I know. I mean, he's incredible, just as inspirations and influences. So it's really fun to be able to hear his ideas, think about those for a couple days and then come back and then say, hey, what if we did it this way? Then here's a way that we could maybe do it, fitting into the budget, you know, the scope of the film or whatever. But I'm thinking about your question, what the process is. So the simplest way is we'll just start going back and forth together. I'll write cues out. I mean, one of the first things I thought of, probably before I even started, was this could be really funny. Because if the music isn't funny, maybe people, it might be perceived as not necessarily, some of the moments could be ambiguous, I think. So we kind of had to figure out if we wanted to lean heavier on the comedy or not. At the same time, the idea of bringing in horns, that was sort of this like, hey, what if we wrote these kind of traditional little piano riffs, but we just did it all with really low horns? It would be kind of funny, but it would also be maybe a little bit smarter. It would have a jazz vibe. It could kind of influence some of the characters. But also allow for punctuation and timing. So that was kind of one of the things, was like, how could we maybe pull it out of these moments to make it funny and it would still resonate? I hope I'm answering the question correctly.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was sort of it. Another part of it, and I don't know if Corey's here or not, but I have a lot of really great friends that are awesome musicians. And so, for example, the horns, my friend Kelly Pratt, who lives in Boston, he plays tuba, baritone, euphonium, trumpet, and so I just wrote him out a score and said, take a stab at this. Just low horns. I want really low, simple horns. It's going to be, they're almost going to be pedestrian, but I think it will be a really cool vibe, especially, well, like your character, Carlos, there was a point of it when I thought, okay, this guy is really sweet and he believes everything he's thinking. And there's a little bit of comedy to that. But I didn't want it to be, you don't want to take away from that. But there's got to be a way of sort of leveling that out. So the horns, that was the main reason why I did that. Anyway, that was a lot of rambling, so there you go.
I guess we have time for one more question from the audience, and then I have a couple follow-ups.
Thanks, on the last one to get a question. I'm treasurer of the film festival, so I sympathize with your money issues, and I have a deep understanding of that. And I've met a lot of filmmakers who liquidated their IRAs and 401ks to produce a film. And
What are those?
Yeah.
Not to liquidate
But that's not what I wanted to talk about. I've been around for a few decades, and I've seen a fair number of movies. The one thing I did absolutely not understand about your movie was how touchy and feely it was. I felt I'm part of the action in there. Jesse's become my best friend. And I'm in there with him, kneading the pizza dough and smelling the pizza. What is the magic that you guys have accomplished here? It's incredible.
I think that speaks to what you are a part of, and that love that we all grew up with this 20th century technology, that it replaced the theater to a certain extent, where we all get together. I mean, we were all feeling the same thing in that room. That was the first time I saw the film. And I felt the same thing. I was not looking at my performance. I was looking at all the love that these friends had for each other, and realizing that this was something that they created. You know, they created a family, and that's what that showed there. And I think the extended family was, you know, what you guys do, that Ashland Independent Film Festival, that indie scene that allows these loves to come across and to be shared by all of us. And I think that's why we do it. You know, the question of how do you get an independent idea off? It's the need for those real narratives, the real human narratives that make us feel for each other, you know, and we transcend that I think, by sharing these experiences. So I think what you're doing is just as important. To continue this festival going is the same thing. It's that tactile, that feeling for all of us that we all want to feel good, and we all want to feel that we are living a very real human existence, you know. I think that's the answer.
I'd like to bring something up, excuse me, that I was hoping that it would come organically, and I guess this is kind of in that vein. There is a warmth to the movie that I think is not only provided by Gary and Ann and the way they make it, but the concept of a Latino culture. And I know I'm venturing into odd territory as a white guy right now, but the warmth, the essence of a community. You know, he's all alone. I mean, the great scene where, you know, they're all getting together because they're celebrating that something is about to happen. It hasn't even happened. No one knows if it's going to work out, but they're starting something. So they all get together and like, this is going to be amazing. That in the WASP culture would not exist. We would all go, so the money. Let's talk about that first. And so he's part of this, and they're welcome. They really welcome him in, and yet he extricates himself from that and goes and looks out and realize how alone he is, but what an opportunity he has to be part of a larger community. And then it goes all the way through the movie, but I think the funniest part of the bowling is the guy who bowls between his legs, and his family is all in. And then when he loses, and they cut back to the family, and the family is like, you are dead to me. You won, but you beat him. You're just dead. You're dead. Because they're 100% on board with the family. It's either you're in or you're out, and that's it. And that was a nice part, and it's something that Hollywood, although like the first Latino based marketed movie that was American that I saw anyway was called El Norte. I think it was in '83 or '84 or something. Yeah. And I just loved it because it was just so different, and yet in America. And so I think that particular market has not been exploited in a way that's real. And you can see it in the Asian market with Crazy Rich Asians or whatever, and in the African American market with the superhero movie or Black Panther. Yeah, that exists as a market. And I'm just speaking completely business-wise, not only the fact that we should incorporate it as a culture and blah, blah, blah. Just as far as just making money out of this, it's there, it's right there. And they want their culture to be represented just as much as anybody else. And I thought that was an interesting part of this movie, was that, all that family, they all, I love that scene, Jesse's scene where he's like, everybody lost their money. I mean, nobody made any money out of this. They got over it. Because that's what you do in a culture, in a family. You're just like, well, you did your best, didn't work out. I love that element of the movie, and I wanted to bring that up, but I was hoping it would just come up.
You know, that's actually one of the things when people are saying, hey, what's your latest project? And I try to explain to them the film. One of the things that I really thanked Gary for, and again, this is part of his friendship with Louis and allowing Gary to understand that culture. You know, a lot of those people that were there were because they are Louis' family, because that culture, that feeling does exist. But I thought it was just so beautiful that in American cinema, a director allowed the Latino culture to be part of the environment without judging it, without scrutinizing it, but just allowing it to be part of the American milieu. And that was what really attracted me to the project, was that it wasn't the Latino part of the film, that you could just be, but that there was such honor and respect paid to my culture as part of this greater story, this greater narrative, and it's what really attracted me to the project.
Well, the easy way out of that would have been that you were making tamales.
Yes, exactly.
To see us in other veins like that is
Yes,
definitely a very, very
yeah.
positive thing. That was part of what I said was a fresh breath there coming to the project, because although Mario was kind of snaky, he definitely wasn't your stereotypical
No, at all.
gangster or just an excuse for someone else to move on in the storyline. So it was
all.
very much appreciated. And just kudos to Gary real quick, and another hat he's wearing, which is editing, and I said this to him this morning. I think a lot of the warmth comes from the film that Gary and Annie knew what they wanted out of the end of the movie, so they did not rush the movie. There was a moment in the movie where James's character starts to really, really dive deep. A lot of movies will get you there, and then for fear of losing you, shoot you back to the top with something funny to get you out of there. They didn't do that. They let us sit with James in that lull until we needed to be pulled back out. Not just the character, but as the audience, you're like, God, get me out of here. And it finally comes out, and that's when you start to feel, that's the real life you filmed it, you know, it wasn't rushed. And I think that was an amazing thing for you guys.
Okay, just a couple things to your question. I think so. Gary and I met in college, and he's always written. One of the reasons I fell in love with him is he loves people, and he finds meaning in every person. And he's always loved people who are the misfits. All of his best friends in high school and college, I think, were the misfits. And he just gets better and better with every project. It was a play in college. That he had written. Somebody else was directing, but we were sitting there and I was watching the play, and it was dark theater, and that was the moment I realized, oh yeah, we're gonna be doing this the rest of our life, and it makes sense to me. It's fine. I'll just stick with it because this is important and meaningful, and people are meaningful. And so I think he continues to get better at that, and the characters that he shapes, he cares about a lot. Even the bad guys, and you can tell because Kyle is a real person at the end of the day, and he has empathy for that person, even though the whole movie he's been a bit of a jerk. And Al, he's funny, he loves that character. So, and then the other thing that makes the movie work and that we need to is James. His performance was amazing, and he wanted to be here, but he had to work. So that guy, and Lisa too. She plays the strong woman who tells him what's what, right? But James on set was so interesting. He was pretty stoic, and we were kind of wondering, is there an arc happening here? What's going on? But when we got in the editing room, we could just see it. Those little facial expressions through the whole movie. He knew what he was doing. He showed up on set every day, totally prepared, completely professional, and what a great guy. And he really carried those emotions for us through the story.
Brilliant.
Very nice work. We're going to have to end in just a second, but I want to go back to a quote in Annie's blog. Once again, I recommend you follow that, which she asked the question, is elation sometimes just despair wrapped up in deceptive wrapping? You should be elated after last night's screening and the audience response and all the great response you're hearing today. Also, we've heard it compared to a family, an army, and a love fest here. And I have to tell you, these guys have been holding hands the whole time. Everybody behind this panel, it's amazing. And they've been loving. So that comes down for a reason. So be elated. You deserve it. You've earned it. Tell friends. Portland, May 13th through 16th. It's playing there all 4 nights, special screenings. It'll be playing here, opening here at the Varsity, May 17th, also a special screening. It'll be going around the country. You can go to the website, you can sign up, you can track the progress, you can follow the blog. You can thank all these people for all their tremendous contributions to an amazing, locally born, raised, made, and released film. Thanks to Ray and Diedrich and Louie and Jesse and Gary and Annie. Thank you so much.